Paris, winter of 1942. Snow drifts along narrow cobblestone streets, muffling the distant hum of German patrol trucks. Street lamps cast a muted, flickering glow on the frost-laden windows of the city. Inside a modest apartment on Rue de la Montagne, Jacques Moreau kneels beside a small, unassuming wooden chest he has discovered behind a false panel. His hands tremble, not from the cold, but from the weight of what he is about to uncover. For months, Jacques had suspected his wife, Elise, of strange nocturnal absences. Notes in her handwriting, cryptic meetings with unknown men, and whispered conversations carried out in rooms that had always seemed ordinary now pointed to something far more sinister. Tonight, curiosity outweighed fear. With a slow, deliberate movement, he lifts the lid. Inside lies a meticulously organized collection of German intelligence reports, coded messages, and transmission schedules, documents that detail operations across occupied France, precise troop movements, and Allied vulnerabilities. The scene is silent except for the faint ticking of a wall clock and the distant muffled boots of German sentries. The air is thick with dust, candle smoke, and the metallic scent of ink on paper. Each sheet Jacques examines carries not only information, but a terrifying realization. His wife, the woman he has shared his life with, has been feeding vital intelligence to the enemy. The stakes are immediate and devastating. If discovered, Jacques could be accused of complicity. The consequences for Elise are equally severe, and yet the documents in his hands could alter the course of clandestine operations in occupied territories. The tension is tangible. Every creak of the floorboards, every shadow cast by the flickering candle, feels like the approach of a final reckoning. Jacques pauses, gripping the edge of the chest. A single thought echoes. How long has this been going on? How much has been compromised? And most importantly, what does he do with this knowledge now? The answer will not only define his fate, but also expose a hidden chapter of intelligence warfare in WW2. This is the moment when ordinary domestic life collides with the machinery of global conflict, revealing the extraordinary hidden world of espionage that thrives in plain sight. Jacques stares at the stack of papers, each sheet a fragment of a larger hidden puzzle. Questions multiply in his mind. How did Elise become entangled with the German intelligence network? Were her actions voluntary, or was she coerced under threat? And perhaps most unsettling, how much of France's resistance efforts have been compromised because of the information she carried. The mystery deepens when Jacques examines a series of coded messages, small sequences of numbers and letters scribbled in margins, seemingly innocuous yet meticulously structured. Historians and cryptographers would later recognize these as part of a standardized communication method used by Abwehr, the German Military Intelligence Service, to coordinate espionage operations in occupied territories. Each code represents troop movements, supply routes, and schedules for Allied convoys. The presence of such material in a civilian apartment raises an urgent question. How did this reach the hands of an ordinary housewife, hidden beneath the guise of domestic life? Jacques recalls subtle incidents from past months that now take on a new, sinister meaning. The neighbor who appeared too interested in Elise's deliveries, the late-night visitor who insisted on brief exchanges in hushed tones, and the seemingly innocuous parcels that Elise received from across the city. All these ordinary-seeming occurrences were threads woven into a complex web of intelligence. The central mystery forms in his mind. Why would a seemingly devoted wife risk everything by working as a conduit for the German intelligence network? Was she an ideologically committed collaborator, a reluctant participant under duress, or a strategically placed agent? Jacques knows that uncovering the truth is not just a matter of personal betrayal, it is a matter of national security. The answers hidden in these documents could illuminate clandestine networks operating across France, and even into neighboring countries, revealing the hidden mechanisms by which the Nazis maintained control in occupied regions. As he studies the documents further, Jacques identifies recurring patterns, specific locations, times, and signal codes that suggest a broader operation far more organized than random civilian collaboration. These clues imply that Elise's involvement is part of a coordinated intelligence apparatus designed to monitor and disrupt resistance movements. The realization crystallizes. A single civilian could inadvertently tip the balance in high-stakes intelligence warfare. This is the central question that will drive the narrative. How did Elise, an ordinary woman in occupied Paris, become a pivotal player in a covert Nazi operation? And what consequences did her actions have for the war effort? The answer lies not only in the documents before Jacques, but in a network of hidden operatives, secret codes, and risks that remain invisible to most of the world, a shadowy intersection of ordinary life and global conflict. Nestled on the outskirts of Normandy, the small village of Saint-Laurent-sur-Mer appears at first glance to be untouched by the war's chaos. Narrow cobblestone streets wind between rows of stone cottages, their slate roofs weathered by decades of coastal winds. Smoke curls lazily from chimneys as villagers go about their daily routines, carrying baskets of bread, milk, and eggs from door to door. Farmers tend fields scarred by the occasional strafing runs, while children play quietly near the fountain in the village square, unaware of the invisible danger threading through their streets. At the heart of this ordinary village is Marcel Dupont, the local baker. Each morning before dawn, Marcel kneads dough in his modest shop, the scent of fresh bread filling the air and spilling into the streets, drawing early risers and tradesmen alike. His hands are calloused from years of labor, and his eyes, though kind, carry a sharpness that comes from surviving difficult winters and the early years of German occupation. To neighbors, Marcel is simply a dedicated craftsman, devoted husband, and active participant in village life. Yet beneath this ordinary exterior, he possesses an instinct for noticing the subtle abnormalities that others dismiss. Marcel's life is structured and methodical. He delivers bread to local cafes and households, exchanges greetings with familiar faces, and keeps careful notes of orders and schedules. His wife assists in the shop, handling accounts and bookkeeping, ensuring that nothing in daily commerce is overlooked. Their interactions with villagers are cordial but cautious. The occupation has forced them all to navigate a delicate balance between routine and vigilance. Marcel has long sensed the undercurrent of tension, furtive glances between neighbors, whispered conversations behind closed shutters, the occasional disappearance of men called to forced labor. It is within this seemingly ordinary rhythm that Marcel's story intersects with extraordinary events. His deliveries and routine movements provide him with a unique perspective on the comings and goings of both villagers and strangers. Small anomalies, an unusual package left outside a door, a stranger lingering near the post office, or a neighbor arriving unexpectedly, register immediately in his mind. Marcel does not yet realize that these small observations will become the first hints of a much larger and more dangerous intelligence operation operating in the shadows. Saint-Laurent-sur-Mer, with its quiet streets and familiar faces, becomes the unlikely stage for a dramatic convergence of civilian life and clandestine wartime activity. Marcel, an ordinary baker, is poised to stumble upon evidence that could expose a hidden Nazi spy network. His role, initially incidental, will grow into a pivotal position, transforming him from a passive observer into an unexpected agent of historical consequence. The village, the bakery, and Marcel's daily life set the stage for the suspenseful discovery that is about to unfold, a moment when ordinary routines collide with extraordinary secrets hidden in plain sight. In the weeks following the German occupation, Marcel begins to notice unusual occurrences that stand out against the quiet routine of Saint-Laurent-sur-Mer. Small details, easily dismissed by most, now draw his attention. Unfamiliar figures lingering near familiar streets, parcels delivered at unconventional hours, and whispered conversations behind closed shutters. The village, once predictable and calm, now carries an invisible tension, perceptible only to those who pay close attention. One morning, while kneading dough, in the bakery, Marcel spots a man in a gray overcoat loitering near the corner. The man's movements are deliberate and measured, and his gaze frequently shifts toward the post office. Each pass seems rehearsed, as though he is marking patterns rather than simply strolling. Marcel's curiosity grows, yet he hesitates, unsure whether he should alert anyone or investigate quietly on his own. Later that week, another anomaly arises. A small delivery of crates arrives at the edge of town. Unlike typical shipments of flour or sugar, these are unmarked, wrapped in plain brown paper, and handled by men who speak in hushed tones. Marcel observes from a distance, noting the unusual care with which the crates are moved, and the secrecy surrounding the transaction. Something about the situation feels wrong, though its full significance remains elusive. Over several days, Marcel begins connecting small clues. The same gray-coated man reappears, sometimes carrying a small metallic box under his arm. Villagers whisper about strangers entering abandoned barns at night, and the town's dogs, usually indifferent to passers-by, bark incessantly whenever the man is near. Each event, minor on its own, forms a pattern that suggests deliberate coordination rather than random coincidence. Marcel also notices coded signals in ordinary gestures. A woman delivering bread pauses in precise locations, exchanging nods with unknown figures. A man passing the church seems to leave subtle markers on doors or walls. These observations, subtle yet deliberate, hint at something larger, an organized operation hidden beneath the veneer of daily life. While Marcel cannot yet fully understand the purpose of these activities, the tension builds. The ordinary streets of Saint-Laurent-sur-Mer no longer feel safe, and every movement of the gray-coated man or the mysterious deliveries fuels a growing suspicion. Marcel senses that the ordinary rhythms of village life are being manipulated, setting the stage for the revelation that will change everything he knows about the people and the place he thought he understood. Marcel decides he can no longer remain a passive observer. Using the pretext of routine errands from his bakery, he begins to follow the gray-coated man at a safe distance. Each morning, he notes the stranger's patterns, the routes taken, the people he meets, and the locations he visits. Over several days, a network of suspicious activity emerges, scattered across the village, yet interconnected in ways only Marcel begins to comprehend. One afternoon, Marcel notices a faint sound emanating from an abandoned barn near the riverbank. Intrigued, he approaches and finds a small radio, partially concealed beneath a pile of hay. The device is crude but functional, its wires carefully connected to a homemade antenna. Nearby, scraps of paper carry sequences of numbers and letters, clearly coded messages. Marcel realizes that the deliveries and seemingly random encounters were not trivial. They form a communication network, likely relaying information to German intelligence officers stationed along the coast. He takes careful notes, mapping the locations of the crates, the movement of strangers, and the patterns of signals. His baker's intuition helps him piece together small anomalies that would escape the notice of most. Footprints leading to hidden entrances, faint chalk marks on walls, and slight alterations to street fixtures that appear to signal messages. Every detail, when combined, reveals a clandestine operation working in plain sight. Marcel also begins discreetly questioning villagers who live near key locations. speaking to them about deliveries and unusual visitors without revealing the nature of his suspicions. Through these conversations, he confirms that others have observed odd behavior, yet fear prevents them from reporting anything. The gray-coated man appears increasingly cautious, hinting that he senses someone is watching, but he never identifies Marcel. At night, Marcel studies the coded messages, attempting to discern patterns. Though he cannot fully decrypt the content, he understands the system relies on seemingly ordinary numbers and letters that correspond to locations, times, and movements. Each piece of intercepted information could contain critical intelligence, troop movements, naval positions, or supply schedules. Marcel recognizes that the consequences of ignoring this operation could be devastating, both for the village and for the broader war effort. His investigation becomes methodical and precise. He documents each observation in a small ledger hidden beneath the flour sacks in his bakery. Every new delivery, every whispered conversation, and every coded mark is meticulously recorded. Marcel has transitioned from a passive observer into an amateur intelligence analyst, piecing together the hidden operations of enemy agents operating directly within his community. The clues accumulate, converging toward an undeniable truth. A network of German spies is actively transmitting sensitive information from Saint-Laurent-sur-Mer to Nazi command. Marcel knows that uncovering the full scope of this operation will require courage, persistence, and careful planning. His ordinary life as a baker has become intertwined with the extraordinary responsibilities of counterintelligence. As Marcel continues his investigation, the stakes rise sharply. The gray-coated man grows increasingly vigilant, altering his routes and varying the times of his deliveries. He appears on the village streets more frequently, pausing at odd intervals as if listening for unseen observers. Marcel senses that the enemy operative has become aware that someone is watching, but who it is remains a mystery to him. One rainy afternoon, Marcel notices fresh tire tracks leading to the bakery's rear entrance. He realizes that the operative's network may already suspect someone has been observing their operations. The bakery, once a place of routine and safety, now feels vulnerable. A neighbor mentions seeing strange figures near the riverbank at dusk, moving silently among the reeds, carrying small packages that Marcel has previously documented. Each observation tightens the noose of potential discovery. Marcel's attempts to remain invisible grow increasingly perilous. While following the operative to a secluded storage shed, he almost stumbles into a patrol of German soldiers conducting routine security checks. He narrowly escapes detection, hiding behind stacks of firewood until the patrol passes. The threat of immediate arrest, or worse, is a constant presence. Every misstep could reveal his knowledge and put not only himself, but his family and neighbors at risk. Communication with the villagers is equally dangerous. Marcel discreetly alerts a trusted friend who runs the village post office, asking for information about unusual correspondence. Even minor inquiries attract attention. 2 days later, he notices the friend being quietly interrogated by local authorities, likely tipped off by collaborators. Marcel understands that the spy network has its own intelligence and informants, and that the village itself has become a contested space of surveillance and counter-surveillance. Meanwhile, coded transmissions continue from the barn near the riverbank. Marcel observes that messages are now being sent at irregular intervals, suggesting the operative has increased security measures. He notes the careful destruction of used message sheets and the sudden disappearance of crates, signaling that the enemy may have detected some irregularity. Marcel realizes the network's adaptability. They are not just spies, but highly trained operators who can respond swiftly to potential exposure. At night, Marcel examines his ledger, cross-referencing observed movements and coded sequences. He identifies patterns indicating upcoming transmissions likely to carry critical intelligence. He knows that any delay in acting could allow the Germans to deliver sensitive information to the front lines, potentially jeopardizing Allied operations in Normandy. The weight of responsibility presses heavily on him. The line between observer and participant has been crossed. By the end of this tense period, Marcel is fully aware of the dangers surrounding him. The village streets that were once familiar and mundane have transformed into a landscape of shadows, coded signals, and silent threats. Each day, each delivery, each fleeting figure on the horizon carries the possibility of detection, betrayal, or disaster. Marcel's ordinary life has been overtaken by extraordinary peril, forcing him into a high-stakes game of intelligence and survival. After weeks of careful observation, Marcel finally pieces together the full extent of the spy network. Late one evening, as fog rolls over the village, he follows the gray-coated operative to the edge of the riverbank. There, hidden behind a thicket of reeds, is a small wooden shack he had previously noted but never approached. Inside, a dim lantern casts shadows on a table cluttered with radio equipment, maps of French towns, and coded documents. Marcel realizes this is the nerve center of the Nazi intelligence operation in the region. He notices a small radio transmitter, its dials carefully adjusted, sending signals across occupied France to German command posts. Bundles of letters, meticulously coded and sealed, lie ready to be dispatched. This confirms the scope of the network. It is not a single spy, but a coordinated cell gathering information on French resistance movements, Allied supply routes, and local troop positions. As he observes, the operative steps out briefly, unaware of Marcel's presence. Marcel watches every movement, the secret knocks, the way packages are loaded, the transmission sequence of signals. He records everything mentally, understanding that a single misstep could expose him. His determination grows. This evidence could save countless lives and alter the local intelligence landscape for the Allies. Suddenly, a faint creak from the shack floor alerts him that another person is inside. Marcel sees a second figure emerge from the shadows, carrying additional documents. The realization hits. The network is larger than he imagined, with multiple operatives coordinating in secret. Marcel's pulse quickens, but he remains still, blending into the darkness, knowing he cannot risk confrontation. Every detail must be remembered for later reporting. The climax comes when the gray-coated operative returns to collect the transmitted messages. As he leaves, Marcel notices a partially hidden ledger under the table, listing names, locations, and schedules of transmissions. This ledger is the key to dismantling the entire network. Marcel carefully memorizes the entries and sketches rough notes in his own notebook, ensuring no evidence is left behind. The discovery confirms the magnitude of the threat. German intelligence has been operating undetected in the village for months, and the information they transmit could compromise Allied operations across northern France. Marcel retreats silently, retracing his steps through the fog, the weight of what he has uncovered pressing heavily on him. He now holds proof of the spy network's existence, movements, and communication methods. The danger is not over. Exposure could mean execution, but the evidence he carries has the power to dismantle the operation. In this moment, the ordinary life of a village baker intersects with the extraordinary world of wartime intelligence. Marcel has moved from passive observer to active participant in a critical intelligence mission. His discovery represents a turning point. The hidden German radio operator has been fully exposed, and the path to securing the village and protecting Allied operations lies in the careful transmission of this intelligence to the proper authorities. Discovery of the hidden German radio operator in the village had immediate and far-reaching consequences. Once Marcel safely relayed his observations to the local French resistance, The information was quickly forwarded to Allied intelligence. The coded messages, transmission schedules, and names of operatives allowed the French authorities to intercept communications and dismantle the entire spy network. What had appeared as a single, isolated threat turned out to be a coordinated effort to gather strategic intelligence on troop movements, supply lines, and resistance activities in northern France. This operation demonstrated the effectiveness of civilian vigilance in wartime. Ordinary villagers, often underestimated, became a critical line of defense against espionage. Marcel's careful observations, memorization of codes, and meticulous documentation provided a level of detail that military intelligence alone could not have achieved. His actions prevented sensitive information from reaching German command, directly protecting Allied soldiers and resistance fighters from ambushes and targeted attacks. The network's collapse also had broader implications. Intercepted radio transmissions revealed patterns of German reconnaissance and highlighted vulnerabilities in Nazi intelligence operations across the region. Allied commanders were able to adjust their strategic planning, strengthen defensive positions, and support upcoming missions with more confidence. The exposure of the spy ring also served as a warning to other occupied villages. Covert operations were widespread, and vigilance among civilians could be decisive. Historians later noted that the dismantling of this radio network contributed to the success of several resistance-led sabotage missions in 1943 and 1944. Supplies intended for German units were delayed, troop movements became less coordinated, and the Germans were forced to expend resources securing communications. Marcel's discovery exemplified the critical role of local intelligence in undermining enemy operations. Beyond military outcomes, the event underscored the moral complexity of war. Ordinary individuals faced life and death decisions in moments of uncertainty, balancing fear with civic duty. Marcel risked execution by German forces simply by observing, remembering, and reporting. His story illustrates how intelligence gathering was not solely the domain of spies or soldiers, but could involve anyone willing to act carefully and courageously. The dismantling of the spy ring also sent shockwaves through German intelligence in occupied France. Commanders recognized that even small, seemingly inconspicuous villages could harbor individuals capable of detecting and reporting espionage activities. This contributed to tighter German security measures, but it also revealed the limitations of occupying forces and the persistent strength of local resistance networks. Ultimately, Marcel's intervention had both tactical and symbolic importance. It prevented sensitive information from falling into enemy hands, directly influenced the outcome of resistance efforts, and highlighted the extraordinary impact of a single individual in a war defined by massive armies and global strategies. The village baker, through careful observation and courage, became an unintentional but pivotal participant in Allied intelligence operations, demonstrating that even ordinary citizens could shape the course of World War II. After the German radio operator was captured and the spy network dismantled, the village slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy. Marcel resumed his work at the bakery, tending to loaves and pastries, yet his life was irrevocably changed. While neighbors continued their routines, the story of the hidden spy lingered in hushed conversations, a reminder of how close the village had come to catastrophe. Marcel's actions had not only saved lives, but had also strengthened the morale of the local community, proving that ordinary civilians could play extraordinary roles in the war. The Allied forces publicly acknowledged the intelligence breakthrough, though Marcel's personal contributions remained largely unrecognized in official records due to the covert nature of the operation. Resistance networks documented his role in internal reports, and his observations were cited in communications between French resistance cells and British intelligence. While many villagers never fully understood the risks he had undertaken, Marcel's meticulous attention to detail and discretion ensured that no innocent lives were unnecessarily exposed during the operation. In the years following the war, historians and intelligence analysts have revisited cases like Marcel's to highlight the importance of civilian vigilance in occupied territories. The dismantling of the spy network in this northern French village is now cited as a textbook example of grassroots intelligence gathering, ordinary people identifying threats, gathering evidence, and cooperating with formal intelligence organizations to prevent catastrophic outcomes. Marcel's story exemplifies how small acts of observation and courage can ripple outward to affect military strategy and national security. The legacy of the operation also influenced post-war counterintelligence measures. Lessons learned from the vulnerabilities of the German spy network informed Allied approaches to communication security, surveillance, and the training of operatives in occupied territories. Intelligence officers emphasized the value of integrating local civilians into surveillance networks, recognizing that local knowledge often provided critical insights that could not be obtained by external operatives. Decades later, the village commemorates its wartime history quietly but meaningfully. Plaques, local archives, and oral histories preserve the memory of those who risked everything to resist occupation. Marcel, like many ordinary citizens, who became unlikely heroes, remains a symbol of quiet bravery and intelligence-led vigilance. His story serves as a reminder that wars are not only fought on battlefields, but also in the careful observations and courageous decisions of individuals living under extraordinary circumstances. The enduring lesson of this event is that history is shaped not only by generals and armies, but also by civilians who notice, act, and communicate. In occupied Europe, countless hidden operations went unnoticed, yet in rare instances, such as this, the intervention of a single individual prevented a spy network from compromising an entire region. Marcel's careful actions, conducted under the constant threat of exposure, underscore the profound impact one person can have, leaving a legacy that continues to inspire historians, intelligence professionals, and the broader public today.